Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Brighten Your Day show. I am your host, and my name is Brighton. Of course. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. It is an amazing day. It is the day after Thanksgiving. It is the day that you feel all of the mixed emotions and the shame of eating absolutely everything and more. And yeah, I don't know. It's just like a coping day. But then you love Thanksgiving. But then you feel ugly when you wake up and you go to the gym and then you see everyone and they all look good and then you feel uncomfortable because you had like 5 cookies and cake and all of that, Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me. But anyways, I hope you guys are having a great time, whether you're listening to this during this Thanksgiving holiday time or you're listening on another time. I have a segment for you guys, and it is very, very, very special for the rabbit hole segment of which we are going to talk about today. No, it's not a conspiracy theory rabbit hole, it is something very different, and if you are new here, I like talking about a lot of different things, especially conspiracies, but today is my own lived experience, and so this segment today, before we get into the main course and the main dish of something I wanted to talk about is swig. Oh my gosh, this is so delicious. Let's restart. I don't think you're gonna know why that's funny unless you're from Utah, but Swig is a soda shop and so is So Delicious, and they are rivals because here's the thing. In Utah, there are so many soda shops everywhere. Around every corner, you're going to see one of three things: a temple, a church, or a soda shop, okay? Or you're going to see all three things, and that's just when everything gets very Utah coded. But the reason why I wanted to taste test this, well, not really taste test, the reason why I just wanted to get one of these today is because we're going to talk about Utah culture. And this is something I have refrained talking about because there's a lot of nuance to this conversation. There's a lot of people with varying opinions. There's a lot of feelings involved, which is completely understandable on both sides. So it's not going to be like that. I'm not going to be getting into the nitty-gritty of like my beliefs or, being rude to some sort of group of people or faith or whatever. This is just going to be my lived experience. We're just going to have a little bit of fun. But today, for everybody that doesn't know, the soda shops do an array of things, but this is a very, I would say like Utah mom drink to get, and I had to get it. It is crisp. It is Diet Coke with fresh lime, and coconut creamer. It's going to sound very weird to you, unless you've already tried it and you have just been baptized, but it is very good. Now, I usually start my show with coffee, but that would be it's just funny. It's just funny because the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Mormons, okay, but they don't really like to be called Mormons, but it's easier to be called the Mormons. I'm not trying to say this in a mean way, but they don't believe in drinking coffee or hot drink, and we can get into that later. And so kind of the loophole is the soda shop has become the new coffee shop for people in the LDS faith, okay? So what you are essentially looking at is a Starbucks to Utah, this culture. And it's funny because they have started to expand outside of Utah because there was this trend of, it's called like getting a dirty Dr. Pepper or a dirty Diet Coke or whatever. It's basically coconut creamer and lime and stuff. And people started to try it on TikTok that weren't from Utah and didn't know about like these recipes and stuff. And they loved it. And so I feel like that kind of put Utah on the map for like the soda in particular. But obviously Utah and the Mormons, the LDS faith, is on the map for other reasons that we're going to get into. Wow, that was a really long preface just for me to say I got this drink, okay? So good. I'm not really a soda girl. I'm a coffee girl. I know, I'm a sinner, but when you want a little soda with a little kick to it, even just the fresh lime in general is so good. And want to know what's so funny? I swear that gas stations used to not carry lime and like all of this extra stuff. I swear, until these soda shops started getting so popular, and then they had to compete because they're like, oh, people aren't going into the gas stations anymore to get their fix up soda, they're going to these soda shops. So now I see a lot of like Utah shops, they'll have, or Utah gas stations, they'll have their own like soda kind of bar in the corner, and I'm like, I see what you're doing there. You're getting on the trend. You're getting on the trend of the soda. Wow. There's a few things I want to preface before I get into it. And I don't want to preface myself too much where I'm not able to like speak freely. And I don't want to, I just want to be able to feel like I can speak freely. This is sounding really serious when it's really not going to be that serious, but I just want to come out here and say, like, I'm not one of those people that are just, my whole personality is hating on, this faith. I'm not like an ex-Mormon, anti-Mormon people, because sometimes people take it too far, but then people also take it too far in this faith as well, where it's like either you're in or you're out. I am just removed from all of that. I have been away from kind of this culture for a very long time now, so I feel like I have both of my eyes pretty opened, but I don't have any hatred or anything towards any group at all. This is just really fun because I just have to say, like, growing up in Utah, growing up in the LDS faith, things were very normal. Or you think that your culture and your church and everything is a very normal thing, and everyone kind of lives the way you live. And then you move away and you're like, oh, okay, so all of these things that I thought were very normal are really not. And then you look at shows like Secret Lives of Mormon Wives and even like The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, and it's like put back into your face again, like all of the themes of the church and the patriarchy and purity culture and all of these things that you like didn't really realize, but then you see it again and you're like, oh, I understand what they're talking about now, or I understand like the other side of things now that maybe I wouldn't have understood if I had still been like practicing in this faith. So it's just really wild. But I grew up in Utah. I grew up Mormon. I really had nothing quite to say about it, like I just went to church. I did my activities. My parents took me to church. It wasn't like super over the top, or like, I guess maybe in my own opinion or my own version of my life, like it just was a normal part of life, And I feel like this church and the state very, very much intermingle with each other. Like, the schools will have seminary buildings, which is tied to the church. So even the government-run schools will have like a place that you can go learn more about the church, and it'll be tied to your grades. Or I don't know, I would even say like, what is it called? Dress codes. Now, dress codes are a part of most schools, I think, which is fine. I don't care what you do. Like, that's great. But I would say like dress codes seem stricter, and you would know that most of your peers and your teachers and everyone you were around, your neighbors and everyone, is like practicing that faith, or like most people, especially growing up. And I will say tides are kind of changing with like the modern LDS culture, where it doesn't seem as strict. It doesn't seem as either you're in or you're out, or you're going to hell or you're not, or whatever. But that's just like my 2 cents of things. I don't really know because I've just moved back to Utah 7 months ago, so I don't really have like a good grasp on kind of what the culture is feeling here. But yeah, like I just think about my childhood and I'm like, wow, there was just so many things ingrained into our day-to-day life that had to do with this church. It's like people live and breathe this church. And then I feel like when I was a teenager and like you start to rebel, and there's this very strong kind of like church presence in your life, that is when you're starting to feel like the shame and the guilt. I feel like way, way, way stronger and more intensely than maybe other cultures, especially outside of state. I'm not saying like, this is like a very generalized topic, okay? I know there's nuance in literally probably everything I'm going to say. But yeah, so it's like once you start to, naturally rebel as you're a teenager and start to naturally explore things and whatever, like you feel that your community just knows about it, and there's comments made and there's people reaching out, and like, and you know that from like, there's so many amazing people in this faith. There really is. There's amazing people in Utah. They're not all bad. I see a lot of, I see a lot of hate, but you also see the other side of like, oh, well, their faith says like if you are not practicing and you're not doing all these kind of things, then, or like if you leave the church, like you are not going to be in heaven with like their family. Like you're not going to be sealed to your family. So like that's where I feel like the fear really sets in like this culture and this faith is once people start asking questions or start leaving or whatever, I feel like it really sets off alarm bells to people in the faith because it's like everything is crumbling for them. Like they won't be able to be sealed to them for all time and all eternity if they're family. And that's an existential crisis. That's a huge deal. And so I always like, I understand that fear and why people kind of overstep boundaries and they try and bring you back to the church and, say these things and whatever. It's like because they believe that they won't be able to see you, and they believe that you're going to go to hell, right? And whether you believe that or not, it's a sad thing. It's a sad thing to step back and be like, I understand why people are so fearful and very, very adamant about keeping people in, their religion, especially your family members. Anyways, so because of that, I feel like there was a lot of shame, a lot of judgment that came from that. I had amazing teachers and amazing, amazing like neighbors and ward people that I do feel like I always felt loved. I always felt supported, but I did have certain times that it's suffocating. And there's this thing in Utah that I hear from so many people, and they call it the Utah bubble. Because Utah culture is so tight knit and it's just so fascinating when you look at it from like a 10,000 foot view. There really is this like Utah bubble. It's the strong culture, it's the strong faith ties and the church ties, it's the strong culture of purity and beauty. And if you've never been to Utah, I am telling you, it is, the people here are the prettiest people you've ever seen. The prettiest people you've ever seen. Yes, Utah gets a lot of plastic surgery, but also very naturally beautiful women, especially. And I feel like it does kind of breed this like competitive nature in women, where it's like, oh, well, if I'm feeling bad and then she's so pretty, I need to be pretty. Or if she's doing that, I need to do that, or whatever. And Utah feels very much like keeping up with the Joneses is what I would describe, and what a lot of my friends and family have described is like, it's this Utah bubble of just like suffocation. And it really can feel suffocating. It can feel like too much when you're really in it, especially when you're practicing the LDS faith, where I am not. I stepped away a long time ago. And so I still feel it, and I still feel how there's so many things tied into Utah. And so then when I see people online get so fascinated with Utah, it's like I understand it. Even though I grew up here and I grew up LDS and all this stuff, like I understand the fascination with Utah because there's nothing quite like it. Okay, you see these young girls that are beautiful. They also are married young. They have like 2 kids already by the age of 20. They married their husband. Their husband's doing sales and very, very, very successful and very driven entrepreneurially. And then you see them live this like perfect life, and then the mom gets to stay at home, and then the mom starts making TikToks and then starts being like an influencer mom. And I always laugh because like I will clock a girl from 10,000 miles away on TikTok and I'm like, they're from Utah. They're from Utah. They have the look, they have the aesthetics, they have the like the accent. It's just they're from Utah, and they're always from Utah. And I just look at so many influencers and they're always from Utah, or they always were born and raised in Utah and then they like moved to Cali or to New York. And I don't like, it's like you can talk about it forever, but it's really hard to pinpoint what exactly it is, like why the influencer was truly born in Utah. but like it was. And I find this so funny because I also think about like mommy bloggers, and mommy bloggers were so big in Utah. Like before TikTok came out and YouTube was pretty new, like blogging was the thing, okay? Kind of like Tinder, or not Tinder, Tumblr era. And my mom was one of those mommy bloggers. And like, I feel like people just love seeing like young families and hearing the stories and kind of living through these families. And yeah, there were so many Utah mommy bloggers. And then I feel like it transitioned to like Utah influencers. And what's so interesting is the the LDS church. Okay, if you don't know what LDS means, it's Latter-day Saints. So the Mormons or LDS Church, they came out and they said, again, I'm going to butcher this because I'm not super in it, but they basically said, like, hey, share your message, share your light, share your faith online. And they kind of have like their own influencers, like sharing their new garments, which, if you don't know what garments are, it's this like, it's like, I don't want to be mean. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to like, it's hard to explain, and I'm trying to be respectful, but it's basically like the certain type of underclothing or underwear that is to, I mean, there's all these things. It's to protect you, it's to feel modest, it's to be sacred and whatever. And so there's like influencers that will come out and show like the new garments, and there's influencers that will come out and show their faith. And so I feel like this church really kind of started pushing the influencers more, and then it started breeding like even more Instagram influencers and TikTok influencers in Utah. And like, it's just a weird thing. But when you look at it from like 10,000 feet away, or you move away, it's like this like cloud is lifted, and you're like, oh, all of these trendy things don't really matter. This look doesn't really, like, it's not attainable. Or you also find out that Utah is so big into plastic surgery. I actually wanted to live Google this. I'm not even kidding. Because Utah, I'm pretty sure, is the number one plastic surgery user. But I want to make sure I have this correct. Let's see. Okay, let's see. I wanted to say like highest plastic surgery per capita state. We could do per capita state. Wait, it's saying Florida. Oh no, not plastic surgeons, plastic surgery. Let's say, maybe this is a bad question, but is Utah the highest plastic? Does Utah have the most plastic surgery? No, oh. Utah ranks high in the nation for Google searches for procedures like breast augmentation, and the state has notable interest in both major cosmetic surgery and oopsie, that's not what I meant. Okay, cultural factors. Utah's culture, which is heavily influenced by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, is often discussed in relation to plastic surgery. Some research indicates a higher than average rate of major cosmetic surgery among members of the church compared to national average. Some research suggests it may be closer to the national average. Interesting. So maybe that was a lie. Maybe I actually got that wrong, and it wasn't as prevalent as I thought. But that's what I've heard a lot, is that Utah has a really high per capita of plastic surgery, which, if you look at The Secret Life of Mormon Wives, or if you look at Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, which I feel like all the housewives, like, it's still a thing everywhere, but there's a lot of plastic surgery. It's all the same look. They have the same eyebrows, the same lips, like everything, a lot of breast augmentations, a lot of everything. And I don't care what you do. Like, you do whatever it is you want to do. You do Botox, you do all that stuff if that makes you happy. I'm totally fine with that. But I do feel like there's a lot of pressure, and it feels like almost a pressure cooker, especially in Utah. And I hear that also in states like California, like LA. There's a lot of pressure to look amazing because everybody looks amazing, and naturally, like, people are going to start comparing themselves to other people, and then it kind of creates this cyclical loop, this problem. And I feel that very hardcore in Utah sometimes. I will say it's hard. It is hard to live in a place where everyone is beautiful, because then if you don't have good self-worth, good luck, soldier. It's very hard. But yeah, I wanted to talk about Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. Now, I haven't seen it, so this is like no spoiler whatsoever. But I have been hearing about a lot of the themes of it, and I'm like, oh yeah, like that is prevalent a lot. That is very prevalent here. Like it's a very patriarchal culture. I think we live in a patriarchal society, but this culture especially, like they very much teach that the man is the leader of the house, makes the final say, makes all of the says, depending on who you're talking to, because it can kind of vary. But like all of the leaders in this church are all men, and it's just a little hard to grow up as a woman when you don't really know if you want kids or what you want to do, and they say like the only thing that you are supposed to be is a mother. I think motherhood is incredible, and raising children is the greatest thing ever. But it's like it kind of seems like they pushed other things aside, or other goals or anything that you maybe wanted to be like, no, but being a mother is like the thing that you need to be. And talking to a lot of women I know, like a lot of my friends and stuff, that is very much like a soft spot of kind of just hurt, because it's like, oh, like I can't go learn this thing or go to college to do this, or like it doesn't really matter because I just am supposed to pump out kids and that's all I'm good for. Like kind of seemed more dismissive of dreams and ambition for women. And then you see women that get married so young, and they've never really explored anything or moved anywhere, or they marry like their high school sweetheart, which is literally what I did, and I'm super happy. But I do caution people when I talk about it, and I'm like, it's not for everybody, and I wouldn't recommend it because you haven't experienced everything yet. You haven't gone out and lived and whatever. And that doesn't mean you have to go out and party or whatever. Like it just there's so many more things that you should go experience before that. I think, at least, I think it kind of stops your growth, or it can if you aren't careful and you don't hold on to like your true self and your values and what you want to do. But then I also talk to other women, and they're like, all I ever wanted to be was a mom and be with my husband. And I'm like, that's totally fine. Like, that is great. You go ahead and do that. And I don't think that that's bad. And I feel like there is a lot of hate toward like trad wives and traditional wives. And there's two influencers I always think about that are from Utah that are huge. Nora Smith and Ballerina Farm. Oh my gosh, I don't know her real name, but her name is Ballerina Farm to me because that's what all of her tags are. And they are very like traditional wives, or at least they show like the traditional nuclear family and the traditional wife role. And I actually see them get a lot of hate, and I'm like, but they look happy, like they seem like they're doing what they want to do. Now I don't know them. Most of us probably don't know their ins and outs of their life, but I do sit there and I'm like, okay, but if people are happy doing that, or if people are happy in their LDS faith, that's fine. The only hard part is when you kind of step away from specifically like a faith, and then you feel like an outsider in your own state or in your own community, and then people only kind of look at you like, oh, well, you should come back to church or else like you're a bad person, or you have tattoos and that's like you're a bad person, or you drink coffee rather than caffeinated soda with sugar and you're a bad person for that, or whatever. And I do feel like in a place like Utah, it does get so condensed with a lot of beliefs that are the same that it can come off as very judgmental. And I did have like my own experiences of that as well. But I also know a lot of amazing people here. And that's why I think it's such a nuanced, interesting situation, that people have opinions over no matter what. And if you're not from Utah, like I still would say like come visit Utah, or don't, because it's getting so busy here and I'm like actually kind of really sad about it. But Utah, I don't care what you think about the people, is so beautiful. Like I have lived in other states, okay? Every time I've ever like moved back to Utah or visited Utah, the mountains are so unbelievably beautiful. And I just sit there and I'm like, I don't know what I had until I moved away from Utah and then I came back, and it is the prettiest thing you've ever seen. Winter or summer. Like I'm not a huge winter girl, but it's like snow-capped mountains and the ski resorts in the winter. Such a vibe. Going to the cabins. or drinking hot coffee or sorry, hot chocolate if you are a member of the LDS religion, is great. It's so beautiful. Like the nature here is unmatched. I have yet to see anything like it. I've heard my sister say Glacier National Park, like in Montana, is really beautiful and close. Or the Tetons in Wyoming are also really beautiful. But there's something about Utah that's insane. And I actually see a lot of comments that are like, I'm not LDS, but I love the people here. And really, I just love the nature here. Like, that's why I moved here. And I hear a lot of people like that don't know Utah, they'll come and they're like, this is the prettiest place I've ever seen. And it's gorgeous. And if there's one recommendation I have of you visiting Utah, you have to come in the fall time. The fall here, the fall leaves up the canyon roads is the prettiest thing I've ever seen in my whole life. Like, it's my favorite time of year. It's perfect weather. You can wear sweaters, but you're not too cold, you're not too hot. I just love it. But yeah, like I want you guys to tell me about your experiences in Utah growing up, or if you don't know anything about Utah and you want to ask me questions, you can. Not like I know a whole lot. It's not like I know a whole lot. But the culture here is very interesting and weird, and it's just interesting to talk about. And I really like hearing other people's stories and opinions on the topic too, because I feel like I have an open mind to really anything. But there's something that I wanted to share that I actually had the privilege of sitting down and talking to this BYU professor about religion. And I didn't even mean to have this conversation talk about like religion and spirituality, but he opened my eyes a ton to a journey that I feel like a lot of people in Utah, or any faith for that matter, have when they leave a church or they leave a faith. And I'm going to tell it to you because it's something that I feel like hit home for me. So you grow up in a church, in a religion. You grow up, you learn all these things, have all these friends, whatever. Then you come across an encounter. You have an encounter with a human, okay? This human makes an error because religions are run by humans, are run by man, and we will sin. You know, that's what's taught is they try and do the right things, but people will make a mistake, okay? So you're in this church, someone makes a mistake, and you're like, oh, okay, if they can make a mistake or if they can say that, then I don't want anything to do with this religion, which is fair. And so then you're starting to deconstruct, you're starting to leave, and it's going to be like a circle. You're starting to leave this religion. Okay, and then over here, this is when you come completely bitter to this religion, okay? And I had this for like a few years. You become bitter, you want nothing to do with spirituality in general because that just hurt you, and you feel lost. You feel completely lost. And there's this quote, I believe it's by C.S. Lewis, it could be by someone else, and I'm going to totally butcher it, but basically says like God placed a God-sized hole in every human's heart. Maybe you don't believe that, maybe you're atheist, and that's fine. But when this professor I was talking to was talking about it, he was like, okay, but then you get here and you're bitter, but then you realize, oh, there's something missing. There's something missing in my life, something I need to find again. But you don't want to go back to this church, this specific religion. You don't want to go back there. And so you come down here on the circle and you try spirituality, okay? This is where you go into nature. This is where you do other practices, like you do yoga, breath work, Reiki, crystals, whatever. And it can be any type of spirituality. I'm just throwing some out there. You try to practice spirituality without a religion, okay? And you can do that for a time, or you can do that forever, and you can be happy there. But then this professor was talking to me, and he's like, yeah, but then there's this point. There's this point that all people will come across, and you move here, and you realize that, yes, you have spirituality, and you're talking to God again, and you're connected to yourself, but what have you missed? You're missing community, and you know that. And because you're missing community, you realize that maybe there's a chance that you'll walk back into religion again right here. You'll walk back into a organized religion, let's say, because that's where the community is at. But then you usually walk back with both eyes open to humans as a whole and how they're trying to run these churches, but they run them imperfectly, how people are great or not so great and everyone's on their own journey, but you will either come back or you won't. And that's totally fine. But it was the journey of spirituality, I think is what he called it. And he called it like this circle. And I really found that because if there's something that I do remember, it's having a lot of like built-in best friends because of a faith. But it's really hard also when you're like, no, but I don't believe in that faith anymore, but you want friendship and you want community. And I think, everyone knows like humans crave community. They crave connection. It's not a new thing. It's not just for religion purposes. It's we crave connection to one another. And because of that, it can make things really tricky when you don't want to go into an organized religion, when you don't even know what your standings are, your beliefs are, but you want people. And then people try and find it other places, and that's fine. Oh my gosh, sorry. Soda is literally making me burp. Whew. But yeah, I feel like that is what I've heard a lot of my friends that have grown in Utah have kind of said, and then they'll end up going back to that church specifically because it's what they know, it's the people they know, their family goes to that church, and so it's just like, yeah, all these things can be wrong, this doctrine can be different or wrong or whatever, but I would rather go with my family and, have this community of friends and people that are trying to be better and whatever. And I totally respect that. I think that that's understandable. But I find it really interesting. Like, there's a lot of nuance to any type of faith journey. And I am specifically not talking about, like, my faith journey because I don't really want it to be about me or what I believe. But I just find it so interesting. And I actually didn't know we were going to be talking about this specifically. This is more of like a serious thing, but yeah, it's an interesting thing, and I understand it both sides. I understand people that are devout Christians or in their faith, and I understand people that walk away, and don't believe in it. And I feel like my mind is just so open to anything, and yeah, I have no thoughts on that other than that. Oh my gosh, y'all. I will say I have watched this I watched this TV show recently called The Religion Business, and this is a pretty dicey topic, but there are a lot of churches, no, all churches, okay, let's say in the tax code, that do not get taxed. If you were a church, you do not have to pay taxes. And there's a lot of funny business that goes around in these churches sometimes because they are run by man, meaning mankind, humans, and they sometimes don't use them for the best of things or funnel the money into other things or whatever. And they did highlight the LDS church as well as other churches, but they did highlight the church. And there's basically this big article that said like they're worth hundreds of billions or 100 billion or whatever. And they were trying to make these shell corporations to not show their members because if you don't know, in the LDS religion, you pay tithing of 10%, your 10% of your income every single year, to the church, and that is kind of like an act of your faith and an act of being bought in to this. And then when that report came out, I remember like a lot of people were talking about like, okay, well, why are we paying tithing then, and why am I not getting helped, and why are they not doing as much humanitarian aid in proportion to the wealth that they have? Because the church, the LDS church does a lot of humanitarian aid, but for the amount of wealth they really had, they were trying to kind of hide. They did not do nearly as much, which was interesting. But it got me thinking. With all this, the religion business and the 501c3 tax cuts or whatever. Why don't I just start a church? I could start a church. Let's see. What would my church be? It could be called like the Bright Side Church, and we would come, and you could bring your own drink. And I don't know, is this bad? We could worship, I don't know, we could bring our animals to church. You could bring your dogs so I could pet them every church day. And then we could like help people in need, you know, but I mean, if I started a church, it'd be pretty awesome. And it looks like people who start churches are in a very good financial state, if you ask me. And caffeine of all kinds would definitely be allowed in my church because you would not catch me without my coffee and caffeine. I couldn't have it. And what else? It would be outside, probably in nature. Yeah, I think my church would be outside in nature with animals. There would be a live band, maybe like a folk band, and we could dance and whatnot. We could tell funny stories. Let me know. Let me know if you want me to start a church. Oh, this is so bad. I really was gonna do a bit about like this is what my church is. Join me so I can be tax free, but I'm kind of worried. About that. That might be mean. Let me know if you like my church though. Outside in nature, with animals, caffeine, folk band, storytelling. You could practice whatever you want. You know, bring your Bible. Bring anything. Pray, not pray, meditate. Why not? Why not? It'd be pretty fun. It'd be pretty fun. Maybe I should. Actually, I do. My sister has a friend, and they literally have like this thing called church that they go up and do up the canyons, and they just all bring instruments and play songs for like 2 hours, and they call it something funny, but I can't remember. That's gonna bug me so bad. But I'm like, yeah, that would be my church. That would be fun. Oh my gosh. Also, Stranger Things happened. I watched all 4 episodes in one singular night because that is me. I used to say I hated Stranger Things, or I just like wasn't, maybe I didn't hate it, but I just wasn't super for it, you know? It was one of those things where like, when something gets so popular, you want to be like the cool, different person, and you're like, oh, it's not that cool because it's so popular, and so I'm not going to watch it. So I feel like I held back on my true just desire of wanting to watch it for a while because I'm like, I can't. That's too mainstream. And then when I finally watched it, I'm like, this is so good. Of course, this is so good. Like, of course, that's why it's popular. And anyways, I loved oh, did I see season 4? I watched season 5. I loved the 4 episodes of season 5. If you haven't watched it, it's pretty good. But what's interesting is I'm also watching season 1 now after I finished the 4 episodes because rewatching the old seasons makes the new seasons make even more sense, and you just connect so many more things together. Or you just look at things that you missed that you're like, oh, I missed that. That's why this happened, or that's why they said this, or whatever. I won't do any spoilers, but I like it. And I was telling my husband yesterday, like, this is one of the only this is one of the only TV series that hasn't gotten increasingly worse each season. Like, I really think every single season has blown me away. It's been really good. Where I feel like most TV series, they'll have like 1 to 2 seasons that are so good, and then they just take such a dive, you know? Or it's like the same thing over and over again. And it's kind of a natural thing that happens in any TV show, is it's the same thing over and over again. But I do like the development of the story and the characters a lot. I feel like there's a lot of developments. They're older, they have like more of a personality. It's just so crazy to also go back to season 1 and see how little they are and then see them now, and it's like, it's crazy. So yeah, I watched that. Maybe once more episodes come out or whatever, I will do more of a deep dive on that. But if you haven't watched Stranger Things, you need to watch it. It's so good. It's not overhyped, in my opinion. I see so many Twitter comments that are like, it's so overhyped, it's dumb. And I'm like, no, you're wrong. It's so good. Especially for like this season of Netflix that we're in, where there haven't been a lot of like bangers lately, you know? Like, there hasn't been TV series that are so good, or movies. Like, it's getting a little sparse out there, but I feel like Stranger Things is very, very, very good. But yeah, that's basically it. That's my story. I feel like I didn't dive so much into my very specifics of my story, but I'd love to hear your thoughts, your opinions, your questions, your comments, your concerns. You can drop them in the comments below. You can like, subscribe, share. I also have a Spotify playlist Maybe I should make an Apple one too, but I have a Spotify playlist called For When the Air Gets Crisp. It's my fall playlist. I put it together. I also took some of your guys' suggestions and put it in there to have, just a fall girl vibe. But I'll keep adding music to that because now it's past kind of peak fall and it's more like holiday season. So maybe I'll add a little more to it. Yeah, let me know what I should talk about next time. Go outside, see the sun, or if it's warm, or if it's cold like me. I'm sorry. I got nothing for you. The winter's hard, but maybe go on a walk. And yeah, until next time.